It is an emergency switch. Can you make sure your mic's on, please?
We'll call to order the closed session meeting of the Capitola City Council for Thursday, January 25th. Do we do a roll call now or when we come back? Doesn't matter? Okay. Do we have any public comment on the closed session items? Seeing none? Seeing none, we will, it's not adjourn. What's the word I'm supposed to use? Recess. We will recess to closed session. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've had to do the closed session
Yeah.
notice.
We're going upstairs.
I think.
Oh, fun.
Is there a printed,
Yeah, there's some up there.
can I get a, oh, there's a printed agenda back there? Oh. It has been a day, I'll tell you. Thank you. No, we're just going to the community room. You have to bring enough for the whole class.
We're doing. Hopefully. Everything on the, yeah. All right, so I got. There you go. Yeah. That we tried to take.
Just because of the animal people? Oh, yeah.
Yes. We drink. I have weed drink. Oh. I'm about to take it, because someone. That was cute. Sorry today, yeah. Always be the ones that can free all the time.
Are you serious?
Oh, the call boxes?
So I gave my intern he was, but it was.
Oh, yeah. Nick's got something like that. All right, I think we're just waiting for Councilmember Morgan. Yeah. All right. All right, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call to order tonight's meeting of the Capitola City Council. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Morgan. Here. Councilmember Peterson
Sorry, I just noticed he wasn't.
is in the room. We'll go ahead and move on to Vice Mayor Brooks.
Here.
And Mayor Brown.
Here, thank you. Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, do we have any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda?
Staff has no changes this evening.
All right. We are going to take a couple items out of order this evening. So we are going to come back to presentations before we get to our general government items, and we'll move on to report on closed session.
Good evening, Council. A closed session was had on the item on the agenda and no reportable action was taken.
Thank you. Do we have any additional materials?
Staff and the City Council received additional materials relating to item 9B on tonight's agenda. 7 emails were received. In addition to the 7 emails, staff corrected attachments 1 and 3 in the agenda packet. All materials are available for public review online.
Great, thank you. We'll move on now to item 6, oral communications by members of the public. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on any items that are not on tonight's agenda. You'll have up to 3 minutes for public comment, and please do state your name if you would like it included in the minutes. So please step forward. Hi, welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is James Ewing Whitman. This is a quick meeting. I've often said in the county of Santa Cruz and the city of Santa Cruz that neither of those places are an island. Neither is Capitola. So it's wonderful that we have 2 elections this year. What else to say? There's quite a bit of talk that this country may be going into a civil war. That's going to affect this county greatly. You know, I spoke at the city council meeting at 6 hours, 13 minutes, 19 seconds. It's a room that was more half full of Santa Cruz police officers. They were talking about the drone item that was a similar subject that was brought up here. I think that if the chief of police would have addressed the council in the way that I did, was just usurping chain of command, he would have been fired. There was nothing that I said that wasn't accurate. So I'm not quite sure what to say because this city is not an island to itself, and there are a lot of things going on around the world that it would be great if people were talking more about. One of the things I really like about this meeting is citizens, inhabitants get 3 minutes to comment on things. And it's interesting because last meeting, I didn't read the agenda beforehand, but I was able to comment probably competently on the 4 items on the agenda. Tonight, I don't think there's much to comment on, but I'm still here. So let's just see what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman. Any additional public comment this evening? All right, seeing none. Yes, okay, thank you. Seeing none, we will close public comment and we will go back to our presentations, item 3, and we have a presentation from the Santa Cruz County Animal Services Authority.
Right. Okay, good evening, Mayor Peterson and council members. I'm pleased to stand here before you today to introduce Amber Rowland, who's the General Manager of the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter. As many of you are aware, the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter operates as a joint powers authority, extending our services to the entire Santa Cruz County, including all the city jurisdictions. Manager Rowland has successfully navigated her first year in this leadership role, and I'm thrilled to report that she has demonstrated exceptional dedication and skill in this new position. Manager Rowland's commitment to the welfare of our animals in this community is absolutely commendable. Under her leadership, the Santa Cruz the shelter continues to navigate through the current challenges facing the shelter, and her vision has played a pivotal role in shaping the shelter's success over the past year. I would also like to express gratitude for the collaboration efforts between the county and the local cities. Together, we are truly committed to building a compassionate animal welfare system that reflects the values of our community. And it was at your request that we invited Manager Rowland here today to share her insights and experiences with us today. And for that, I thank you for your time. I want to hand it over now to Amber Rowland. She'll give you a presentation on the animal shelter and the challenges that we're facing.
Thank you. Chief.
Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Rowland, welcome.
Thank you very much. I apologize for being a few minutes late. You know, crisis. Thank you very much to Chief Daly and to the city council members here today. I just want to provide an overview and a little status update on the Santa Cruz County Animal Shelter for you. So as Chief Daly mentioned, we are a joint powers authority and our jurisdiction includes all of Santa Cruz County, both the incorporated and unincorporated areas. Capitola is a small, but of course, very important member of our JPA. And we provide animal control, pet lost and found sheltering, adoption services, and outreach programs. This slide is probably a bit of a, you're probably all familiar with this kind of stuff, but just wanted to make a few points related to the animal shelter about these statistics. Our jurisdictions contribute to the shelter JPA according to a formula that's based on the population of each jurisdiction, the area, the square miles of the jurisdiction, and then the number of animal control calls that have come in from that area in the past year. And so we have a formula for all of that, and that's what determines the amount that each member jurisdiction contributes to the JPA. We are responsible for animal protection and control for all 445 square miles of the county. The city of Capitola, by comparison, is 1.6 square miles. So it's a big jurisdiction. Our officers have to go far and wide. And we do also take in animals from other areas sometimes. And we also transfer animals out of the area sometimes. So there's a lot of driving involved. And we apologize, there might be a little bit of a wait time on some of the animal control calls. That's why. I also show the income and housing. Sorry, go back again. Well, I also show the income and home price figures because both housing issues and economic factors and fluctuations have enormous impact on sheltering operations. When the economy is strong and housing is affordable, people can make long-term commitments to pets. When things go sideways, you have to give up animals, and that really hits the shelter hard. Regarding our budget, it of course impacts our operations and our abilities to serve the county. These figures are based on our estimated actuals for our current fiscal year. You can see there's a discrepancy between what we expect to spend and what we expect will come in. Our services and supplies budget is heavily impacted by the number of animals we take in, and that's why we're so committed to prevention efforts, especially spay neuter, microchipping, and licensing. Roughly 70% of our budget comes from JPA member contributions. The rest we raise through licensing, fees, merchandise, and donations from the community. If you can click one more time, this little chart, teeny little chart, it just shows the increases and decreases in funding from the JPA over the last 10 years. And it amounts to an average increase of 4.3% over the last 10-year period. Moving on, our staff is the amazing, very lean team that makes it all happen. We have the same number of staff as the Capitola Police Department, actually, I think. Our staff are our general line staff are represented by the SEIU, and the extra help are part-time staff. And I think this is one slide that I think I updated since I sent it, sorry. Basically, we have 7 full-time, anywhere there's a point something that represents some extra help staff or part-time Our volunteers and foundation board are also crucial to our operations. So there's no question that we could not do what we do and all we do for all the animals if we didn't have such great volunteer and foundation board support. A little bit of information about our facilities and our vehicles. We do operate 2 shelters, one in Watsonville and one in our main shelter in the Santa Cruz. Both shelters are leased from our local jurisdictions. They are not owned by the JPA. Both could use some updating. We do have a fleet of vehicles, and as I said, they get a lot of mileage on them every year, and they are quite old, actually. So if anybody has any spare. Um, and then, yeah, so that's just sort of gives a little sense of the kinds of things we have to oversee for 365 days a year of operations. And then an important point about our shelter is that we do have an open door philosophy, a very important distinction to make because many animal shelters are selective intake shelters or restricted intake shelters. As an open door shelter and a socially conscious shelter, we don't focus on just a single metric, which many shelters do now, a live release metric or a live release rate to measure our success. We try to make sure that we are doing the best we can to serve as many people as we can and to serve the neediest of the animals and the people in our community. And we strive to ensure that we can always provide humane and ethical care. So we get that question a lot, are you a no-kill shelter? And that's why we're conscious of making that distinction. We don't consider ourselves a no-kill shelter because we believe that's not, it's sort of misleading to what actually happens, even in no-kill shelters. But if we move on to our intake statistics our intake in the last calendar year, this year is 23% higher than it was last year and 56% higher than it was 2 years ago. So our intake numbers are going up rapidly. And that is, unfortunately, we don't expect our intake numbers of homeless pets or needy pets to go down this year largely because there has been such a big reduction in the availability of affordable spay-neuter services in our community over the last several years. So there are a number of different things that have kind of come together to bring us to this point. But unfortunately, our intake numbers keep rising, and that does have significant impact on our staff and on our budget and on our operations. But we're hoping now that we have, we do have a number of collaborative efforts going on. We work closely with very important partners in the community. 2 extremely important ones when it comes to spay and neuter that I want to mention are FOAS, Friends of Watsonville Animal Shelter, which is a very small nonprofit organization that provides low-cost spay and neuter services, mostly in the South County area, but also to Project PUR, who has a teeny tiny organization that has been spaying and neutering feral cats, and that is an important service that prevents a lot of cats from having to come into the shelter. So I just want to give a shout out to them and hope that we'll recognize the important impact that those organizations have on our own operations. And with that, I really appreciate the collaboration of all the JPA member jurisdictions and the time today. And if anybody has any questions, take them.
Thank you. Any questions on this end? Any questions down here? No? Thank you so much. I do have just one quick question. The euthanized animals, is it due to space or due to age and illness?
We try to never euthanize animals just for space. Like I said, we often will transfer animals out of the area when we get very full. We had a very, very busy year this year. And thankfully, we have a whole bunch of partners, including some of the limited intake shelters in our area and out of our area in nearby counties and communities. And so we rely a lot on transfers. As our slide showed, we had about 20% of our animals were transferred to other organizations in the last year. So that's where we really rely on our partners. But yes, we do euthanize animals, and we do that often as a service to people, as a low-cost service for end-of-life services. But we also do euthanize animals that are too aggressive or have severe behavior issues or severe medical issues that we can't or their owners can't get them through.
Yeah, understandable. Thank you for the work that you're doing for the animals and for the community. I see you had 24% of your animals were returned to family, and our cat in my family was one of those. It went missing for over a year and
Amazing.
ended up in the shelter, and we found it there on the website. So he's been back in our house for 3 or 4 years now. So thank you for the work that you do personally. Thank you from me personally, and then also just for everything that you're doing for the animals and for the community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. We will move right along. We are on to staff, item 7, staff and city council comments. Does staff have any comments?
I do have some comments this evening, and I think some of my staff members do as well. The first thing I want to notice is that you have 3 items on today's consent calendar that involved either receiving state grants or taking action to begin to execute projects pursuant to those state grants. This week, we were informed by the state that all the funding from last year's budget that the city of Capitola received has been put on hold. That includes the funding for the Capitola Wharf, the Capitola Community Center, and the Stockton Bridge. That was a grant for the wharf for $500,000. Community Center was $1 million, and then Stockton Bridge was $500,000. It's unfortunate, obviously, this has happened. It doesn't mean it's the end of the story. There's obviously long negotiations that take place in Sacramento, and I know that our elected leaders there are going to be fighting for us. I do want to note that staff still recommends approving the items that are on consent. The 2 items related to the wharf and the community center are the resolutions that would authorize staff to enter the contracts with the state. And the reason why we're recommending authorizing that at this time is, should a window of opportunity present itself when we could execute a contract, we would recommend that the city could move forward as quickly as possible by getting this authority now. The second contract, the third item is the Stockton Bridge project design work. So you may recall that several years ago, the city actually appropriated $350,000 to sort of begin looking at what to do with the Stockton Bridge and potentially look at debris diverters to avoid accumulating logs at the bridge during big storms. And the $500,000 was on top of the funds that the city had already appropriated. So we have existing budget available for that contract. And I think the Stockton Bridge project is one that warrants getting these actual engineering drawings, getting the actual costs, getting a final design for what we would need to do, so that even if the state funding isn't available, we would be able to receive other grants. So my recommendation is to leave those items on consent. However, if council would like to, you can pull it off consent and have a more full conversation about it. And then I think we had a couple other staff comments this evening as well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to bring you an update on the housing element. As you know, the state provided us comments approximately 2 weeks ago with additional revisions for the housing element. I've met with our third party who's been drafting the housing element. We've put together a game plan of how to move forward, as well as a representative from our city's attorney's office. And we'll be bringing to the Planning Commission at the February 1st meeting a discussion on the mall specific to height and floor area ratio, and also bringing to you on February 8th a discussion on the mall relative to height and floor area ratio. The state's looking for us to put in some actual numbers that we could agree upon. Malone Guyer is asking for 75 feet, as well as an exception to including parking within the floor area calculation. I'll have lots of information for you on that and why they're asking for those numbers and exceptions during the February 8th meeting, but just wanted to put that on the horizon. And as you're around town and down in Santa Cruz, 75 feet equates to about 6 stories. So observe what's around. There's a lot of new development around, and just picture what could occur at the mall. And I look forward to the future discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any additional? Yeah, I'm just making sure there's no more further staff comments. Nothing else from staff? Okay, we'll go to council comments and we'll start down here.
Thanks. So I just had a question about this Stockton Bridge. Would that need to pull from consent, or can I just ask it?
I think you can go ahead.
So my question is, if we're spending, giving you permission to enter a contract to look at the changes to the bridge to mitigate flooding. Should we also be looking at changes to the bridge at the same time to accommodate the increase in bikes from the rail trail to the village? Would it make sense to look at those at the same time?
Looking back at my public works director here, I think that this project primarily, I think, is focused on like evaluating how the diverters could work.
Hmm.
I think one of the options is obviously a new bridge. And if we have a new bridge, then for sure we can be talking about better bike head access. I think it's probably a separate funding project I'm just trying to brainstorm this one here.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a.
But whether or not the feasibility of doing some sort of pedestrian enhancements, I think if, we have an engineering team looking at it, I think we can evaluate that to see if there's the ability. I think it's most, to be specific, probably it would be some sort of like, add-on to the.
Yeah, like something
That's-
hanging on the side, or if that would come into play with a modification to the supports on the
Yeah,
bottom.
I think we can look at that in the context of this contract. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional council comments? Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to give a shout out to Public Works and staff for getting our blinking lights up so quickly. Just a couple weeks ago, they were installed, and it's a great addition while we continue to work on our safety with A Street and Hill Street. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I echo that. Okay, so we will move on now to our consent. Oh, yeah, do you have comments?
Oh, no, I was.
Okay. We will move on to our consent agenda. Item 8, all items listed on consent will be enacted in one motion in the form listed on the agenda.
I'll go ahead and move to approve consent items 8A through 8E.
I can second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Move on to item 9, general government public hearings, and we'll start with 9A, New Brighton Middle School Field Restoration Project. Turn it over to staff. Oh, hello. Good evening.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Brown and City Council members for giving us some time tonight, just to give you a little update on our planned New Brighton Field restoration. I'd like to take just a couple of seconds to say thank you. Thank you for all that you do to partner with our school district, whether it's childcare, whether it's Equity Swim, whether it's support from the police department for student safety. You all always walk the walk, and we just really appreciate being partners with you. It means a lot. So we have a lot of great things going on at New Brighton. We have tremendous coaches led by our athletic director back there, Enrique Domo, and the principal, Christina Hadrias. In fact, earlier tonight, just as an aside, I stopped by and saw our girls flag football team practicing, our first ever, right? Coached by the principal's husband, no less, which I didn't even know that was happening. So that was really cool. We have an award-winning PE team, amazing. We have awesome student athletes. We're only missing one component, a field. Our field is in not very good shape. Nobody's fault. We just can't defeat the Gophers. And so they're practicing on one little spot of grass that wasn't overly drenched. And so we know that that's you're invested in that too, because while of course our first responsibility is to provide that to our student athletes, we feel that if we do a really good job on the field out there, it can serve the community during off hours and weekends and such too. So I think it could be a win for not only the school and the students, but for the whole community. With that said, I won't spend any more time because I know we really want to see what it might look like. And we hope that by doing this, we've been doing this at our board meetings. Little plug, next week on Wednesday night, the 31st at 6:30, we have a community forum. We'll be doing this presentation again. We wanted to get it out there, so no surprises. We want everybody in the community to know what we're doing and be able to ask their questions and have input on it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our architectural partner, Ralph LaRue from 196 Architects. That group, a version of that group did a great job on our last big facilities project, which was the great new classrooms that replaced all those portables. So we're really happy to be partnering with him and his team again. With that, I'll hand it over to Ralph.
Nice to meet you all. I'm Rafaru, 196 Architects. We were formerly known as Maddie. We merged with 196 4 years ago. I've worked in this area with every school district for about 24 years. So very familiar with almost every campus. And the passion is K-12 educational projects. And so we were selected in 2016 to assist with master planning. At that time, the focus was getting rid of old portables and building new classrooms. So that was the focus of that bond. And what you see in this picture is our original plan for New Brighton, but that field would have been too small for, regular play at every level. And so I wanted to show that, and just in the evolution of these projects, we are now engaged in a master plan update with the school district, and we're looking at fields at all their campuses, actually. Just some precedent studies, some recent projects that we've completed. Of course, throughout the county, we have the gopher problem. This is a project we did with Barrow School District, where they had a limited budget. It was a dual use with the Parks and Rec from Watsonville and the Barrow School District. It was same size field as another project. We're going to show you Shoreline with just a minimal asphalt jogging track around it. So you're probably most familiar with Shoreline, and this is kind of the model for the New Brighton field, although we will have a more extensive track around Shoreline. The field that we're going to show you is exactly the size, so you can go physically feel it, which consists of a large full-size field and then practice field for juniors. So unlike Shoreline Field, we plan to have a 100-yard dash on one side. So that'll be a different material. It's artificial material. And that way we can actually have timed races. So years ago, there was much consternation on fields. There was some off-gassing 10, 15 years ago. The industry's moved along a lot and using more natural products that reduce the heat of the field, and they don't have that off-gassing. They also have a longer longevity. They used to warranty fields around 10 years. These fields more like 16 years now. And this particular product type is used on a lot of FIFA fields around the world. So it's been tried and tested. So this is the program at a glance. That field size, again, 330 by 195 wide, and then the practice fields. And then, we met with the PE team. Of course, this is a school, so we focused on the multi-use of the school in support of the athletic department. Kind of unique is that we have that solar array, which is going to act as a nice shade for anybody watching the game. So we'll have some bleachers under that. And so we did our studies, and we looked at access points around the field. And what I'm going to be showing you in our layout is enhancing natural pathways to the park, adjacent park, Monterey Park, as well as school access, ease of school access. So this is the layout. So the dark green there represents the field that you just saw. And then closest to the campus is the 100-yard straightaway. And you'll see just to the bottom left is another PE multi-use game space. You should know that this is going to be fenced with, we're thinking a decorative picket fencing around. So there'll be fence and gate, and there'll be opportunities for joint use. The fourth classroom wing down ends with some restrooms, so there's an opportunity for possible restroom use by the community as well. So looking at that same layout with an aerial overlay, you'll see proposed areas for land swap, and what that helps is for us to square off the parcel. So if you contrast that to what I showed in the original master plan for 2016, the field wouldn't fit without that. So we need to share space, and for the benefit of both the park and the school. In the orange on the top, the linear line that's a pedestrian access that already enters the school. So we're enhancing that and allowing people to come down and enter the park through that area. And so we have several design charrettes. I'm looking forward to the next one. So this is a concept plan you're looking at tonight. We just kind of laid out the space. That design will evolve a little bit with the PE team. Always ask them to give a thumbs up if they like it, and they did. And so as you can see, we'll be meeting again and having a community forum at January the 31st. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's an exciting project. Any questions on this end? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much for the presentation. One of the questions I have goes back to all of the wonderful things you're going to have on the field, the soccer field, the sprint meter track, et cetera. And then there's a practice diamond. And I'm looking at the design, I would assume that's a baseball diamond. Is that correct? And what do you mean by future?
So that's not the priority of the PE team because they can practice adjacent on the and plus the material is it's not going to be sand, it's all going to be artificial turf. So we have an opportunity to stripe that as a practice softball by adding a backstop, but it's really not a priority of the PE team for that particular field this time.
And this might be a question more for our staff, but who manages the baseball diamond? I just don't know.
The softball field in Monterey Park, that's our Public Works Department.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks. I was curious about the smaller rectangle towards the bottom. You said it was going to be used for other sports.
Yeah, there's a story there. So there was notion that we would do some sand volleyball. And, and there was discussion in the PE department, well, let's make it do more things. So it's shaped to take 2 volleyball. So we'll have sleeves for volleyball courts, but grass volleyball. And then when they're not using it for volleyball, they have other games within the PE curriculum that they can do in that size.
So it's grass. It'll stay.
It's artificial turf.
Oh, it'll be artificial. Okay.
Yeah. So everything you see there is proposed to be artificial turf.
And then I had another question. Are there access points on the fence towards Monterey Park that residents can go in and out of?
Yes, I haven't highlighted them, but we'll put them on notes because also it's access points for students to arrive at school, which they do naturally now. I'm thinking where we're creating the new pathway, there has to be obviously a gate up there and there'll be a gate lower down with a small rectangle that you just spoke about. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. This is just a presentation, so there's no action this evening. Thank you for sharing that information with us. All right. We are moving on to item 9B, conceptual review for a senior living facility at 3720 Capitola Road and 1610 Bulb Avenue. Our recommended action this evening is just to provide feedback on the conceptual plan and consider authorizing the mayor to sign a letter of support for annexation. Do we have a staff report?
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you,
Hello.
Mayor Brown. And good evening, council members. I've got the staff PowerPoint. So as mentioned, we have a proposal for a senior living facility. This is a conceptual review. This applicant is, if we go back just to that slide just real quick. Applicant is proposing that this project is eligible for community benefit, which brings with it incentives that allow them essentially a taller building and a larger building. And the applicant team also has ownership control of an adjacent parcel, which is in the county, And the overall site plan for the project includes that parcel. So an annexation request is also part of this. Next slide. I'm going to have to go in a couple directions, so I wanted to provide a presentation overview. So we'll talk about the processes, both the conceptual review and the annexation. I'll give you a lay of the land, a site overview. This project was already reviewed by the Planning Commission, so I'll give an update on that, the feedback that they got there, then how the applicant responded with an updated design that is before you this evening. And we'll look at the community benefits analysis. Next slide, please. So the conceptual review has steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're at step 3. And those are the three bracketed with the note that your feedback this evening is non-binding and advisory. And likewise, the application is not a fully fleshed out plan. It's a conceptual plan in nature. If the applicant moves forward, step 4 is where it becomes a formal entitlement application. And it would follow the same process through the Planning Commission with a formal recommendation to the City Council, and then the council would ultimately take action. Slide, please. So the annexation process is a 9 to 12 month process and is facilitated by the local agency formation commission, which is LAFCO. It's a county-wide commission that oversees sphere of influence and annexation requests. This is an anticipated 9 to 12 month process. It can run in parallel with the entitlements process. And so it's initiated by the applicant making a request to LAFCO. And then pretty soon after that, LAFCO will reach out to the affected agencies for authorization to proceed. Then steps 3 and 4 are really where the heavy lifting in terms of the administrative effort are done. So the city has to do a pre-zoning. LAFCO will prepare recordation documents. City and county will negotiate a revenue neutrality agreement. And then ultimately there's a LAFCO hearing. I've included a couple notes here just for potential questions on this process. And so either agency, either the county or the city, could pull out of this request at any time prior to the recordation. And then the other note is that annexation, if that process were ahead of the timeline or the entitlements, could have a condition placed on it that it be placed on hold until there's resolution with the project. Next slide. So looking at an aerial view in immediate vicinity, subject property in Capitola is outlined in yellow, 3720 Capitola Road. The corner lot across from the AT&T Pac Bell utility building, and the target's 2-story parking structure. And 1610 is captured in blue here, and that's the county property on Bulb Avenue. And we've got the square footages that they total just under an acre in total. And then this is a sphere of influence map. So I'm showing this for a couple of reasons. The city boundary is in the dash black. The sphere of influence is in red. One of the requirements for an initiation of an annexation is that a property be in the sphere of influence, which this one is. And then got the project vicinity map there, which I'll zoom into on the next slide. And so this is taking a look at the zoning map and layout. This is at the west end of town with the county boundary interface, and the city boundary jogs in and out in this location to capture the full depth of properties facing Capitola Road. And then to the plan right here, you're getting into kind of the commercial corridor, or so the expansion of the city boundary here would effectively just become an extension of the community commercial zone in a similar pattern that already exists. Next slide, please. So here's the site overview. So it's a corner lot. This is the 3720 lot looking at the corner. Existing use is a single family home with an ADU. We understand there was a prior use of a dog kennel also at this property, but very underdeveloped property just with a single family home. Next slide, we'll rotate around to Bulb Avenue, counterclockwise a little to the south. This is looking broadside at 3720 Capitola Road, and the ADU, real small to the right, is with the awnings. And the next slide has got the county property at 1610 Bulb. Current uses are a single-family home with an ADU. Slide, please. So the background, Planning Commission, there's been a bit of a hiatus for the project. It was heard at the October 20th, 2022 meeting. We had one commissioner that had to recuse due to proximity reasons. Of the four commissioners, their non-binding feedback was a suggestion that the project was not eligible for a public benefit. There was some substantial neighborhood input. 10 or 12 public speakers commented about parking impacts, a narrow street, traffic safety, noise, and just overall incompatibility of the use and the size of the building. So that prompted the applicant to put the project on hold, look at some alternatives, and ultimately they reversed the layout, which is what you'll see tonight. I've actually got the other site plan just for reference and the new one. But the summary is that the building previously followed the objective design standards and had the building oriented toward Capitola Road. And due to some of that feedback with traffic on Bulb, they've now flipped it to where the parking lot is on Capitola Road and the parking lot is on the neighborhood side. And I've got that final note there just to say that the project previously complied with the objective design standards. Now the applicant is trying to balance in mitigations in response to neighborhood input. So there'll be further modification and we'll need to rectify those items if the applicant moves forward with a formal proposal. So here's the reference site plan. This is the one that the Planning Commission reviewed that is more consistent with the objective design standards. So it's oriented toward Capitola Road, plan left, and the parking lot behind. It did have 3 curb cuts, one into a porte cochere and another 2 with a single drive aisle to access angled parking at the rear, and was a U-shaped building. You can go ahead and move on. So that's just for reference. That's not what's before you tonight. And this is what's before you tonight. So the parking is flipped. So parking is now plan left and the building is plan right. It's a donut-shaped building with a courtyard in the center. And you've got the 2 curb cuts on Capitola Road with roughly the same amount of parking, 33 parking spaces proposed. And so getting into, this is a 3D aerial image, approximately 100 feet above Capitola Road, looking at the front of the proposed building. And then you've got the 2-dimensional, just traditional elevation plan on the bottom, showing the building articulation. And we can go ahead and move on. We'll rotate around similarly. And this is the broadside elevation from Bulb. So the porte cochere is on the left, and then I'll note on the right, there is some effort to step the building back, introduce a daylight plane compliance. And then on the interior, there is an effort to minimize views out of some of the windows, particularly on the 3rd floor. There's only a corridor, so there's no resident rooms on that 4th floor. And then this is the final elevation that was provided. This is the rear, and you can see some of the articulation that they incorporated in that daylight plane setback area. Go ahead. A lot of this is in the staff report. These are just the development measurables in compliance, and this being a conceptual review. There will be a more detailed analysis of this moving forward if the applicant pursues a formal application. The one thing of note here is the 33 parking spaces is short of what the code would call for, 54. So we're expecting that a specialty study associated with parking would be required. Okay, and now we'll look at incentives for community benefits. So this is straight out of the zoning ordinance. So for projects that are located at the 41st and Capitola Road corridor that advance general plan goals and policies, they're eligible for additional development incentives. We can go ahead and move on. And then there's a list of the types of uses or projects that could apply for this type of benefit. And so the applicant is directly making an application under number 11, which is the other community benefit, kind of the open class. But by association, they're making a justification that childcare is also related and that age-related care is contemplated in the ordinance. And these are the findings. So these are when a decision is actually going to be made on the project, not this evening. These are the findings or the tests the project would be evaluated against. And I'll note number 4 does talk about neighborhood properties and impact. So there will be continued work on that. If the applicant moves forward, we can go ahead and move on. And so just a real quick summary of if public benefit is eligible, if deemed eligible, the applicant can pursue up to a 2.0 floor area versus 1.0, which is what the code allows, and an increased height from 35 feet to 50. And then the findings and the community benefit are tied back in a couple of different ways to general plan. So I've excerpted some of the relevant sections here, and this is all in the staff report. I did trim these quite a bit to make it onto the slide, but the point is that goal 3.0 is defining people with disabilities and seniors as a special needs population. And then the policies follow through with strategies for serving those populations. Specifically, 3.6 is to provide readily accessible housing in proximity to transit, shopping, public amenities. The subject site is certainly well served by all of those resources. And then policy 3.8, which talks about encourage development of a variety of homes for seniors, including assisted living, which is what is being proposed. So with that, I will get into the recommendations. So a couple of the first 2 items don't need a vote. Again, it's advisory feedback that you're providing the applicant on whether you believe the project is eligible for pursuit of a public benefit and the associated development benefits. And then if you would like, you can comment on the design and the layout. And as mentioned earlier about the annexation, you could decide to move forward with authorization tonight, or we could wait to a future date when prompted by LAFCO. They will be in touch with us early in that process asking for a determination. So that is my staff report, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with questions. Questions on this end? You have questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. My question tonight, or one of my questions, is this is being called a senior living center. When I hear senior living center, I assume that these are homes or where our seniors could live. Can you tell me why if that's the case or not the case? We can.
So these are not living units because they don't have a kitchen. So the state would not count them toward RHNA numbers, but they are a long-term care and they do have beds and do serve as a home with assisted care for their intended clientele. So it really depends on your definition, but I'm trying to relate it back to the housing element and RHNA requirements. These are not living units by that measure.
Okay, so are we looking at it more at a medical facility?
That would be accurate, yes.
Okay. So, okay. Let me look at my other. I guess my second question wouldn't be, I think it would be are we addressing, Mayor, are we going to address questions to the person who submitted the applicant? Are we going to do that?
We want to start with staff questions and then do applicant questions, or what would you recommend? Yeah? Okay.
Okay, so I'll just pause there then. Thanks.
Okay. Staff questions first? Okay.
I just wanted to follow up on what Councilmember Brooks asked about whether or not it should be considered housing. you know the approximate stay length for these people? Is it like they go in and get medical treatment and go out, or is this like end of life care? Or what does that look like?
I think the applicant might be able to weigh in a little bit with a little more expertise on that, but I think this is more of a long-term care facility. I don't think this is intended toward a recovery and exit back to independent facility.
Thank you.
Staff questions?
I have a question about the design. Well, why was it switched from the building facing SoCal Drive, sorry, Capitol Road, to the rear of the property?
The primary driver was the traffic. So the original design had 3 curb cuts, and much of the public comment that was received talked about impacts to bulb. And I believe the applicant was trying to remove that impact directly from bulb and offer vehicular access one way in, one way out on Capitola Road.
But I'm not sure if the neighbors are now that they're going to find out the building's going to be encroaching into the neighborhood, they might have other things to say. But so with the design is still up in the air and they haven't decided on the design, and we're just going to figure out if we can move forward with LAFCO.
Yeah, your comments on the design are advisory this evening, so you could weigh in on either design.
I think it would be more appropriate to have the larger structure facing or up against Capitola Road and the parking in the back. And maybe they can redesign parking. Maybe you come in one way off of Bulb and then you go out on Capitola Road.
Looks like we have staff available. If I could, I just want to clarify, and Brian showed this in his presentation, but just to be really clear, right now in the conceptual review, it'd be great to get feedback on the design. When this application comes back in if it comes back in as a formal application, we would send it out for a third-party review to make sure it complies with all of our design criteria of our code, as well as our objective standards in the code. And then from there, the applicant could modify it based on the third-party advice, and then it would go to the Planning Commission, where they would take another look at the design and provide direction based on their analysis and the feedback from the third party. And then finally, it would come to City Council. So there's 3 more layers of reviewing the design in the future if this was found to be a community benefit. And just to be clear, during the time that after the Planning Commission hearing back in October of 22, staff did not get the design that's before you tonight until late in 2023. And the next step in the community into the community benefits process is to bring it to City Council. So we didn't do any more design analysis on this concept that's before you tonight. And that's definitely a very important piece once we get a formal application. So thank you.
Thank you.
Staff comments or questions?
Yeah, I guess this is kind of following up for what Councilmember Clark said. If you're traveling from 41st Avenue, and so say the parking remains enter and exit on Capitola Road, or I guess the question is, would you have to do a U-turn either way the parking is situated, whether it's on Bulb or on Cap Road? Yeah, okay.
There's no left turn.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Okay, I have a couple questions before we go to the applicant. You have additional staff, just for staff? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. So this is in regards to an email that we got about the trees there. I wasn't sure if the current plan included removing those redwood trees or, and I was also wanted to ask staff what our policy on removing those types of trees is.
So there's not a specific call out of tree removal because it being conceptual, but I think inevitably some of those trees are going to be part of the formal review if the applicant moves forward. And so how we handle those is typically with mitigation plantings. And so that would be evaluated in parallel with the formal application.
I guess I'd like to revisit that sometime in the future because I just having talked about the last tree removals with the oaks, I remember the mitigation didn't really seem up to par. And if we're removing these huge old redwood trees and planting, a couple-year-old redwood trees, that's not really equivalent. So maybe we could bring that up back at a later date, though, because that's clearly not exactly related to this. But thank you.
Additional staff questions? No? Okay, I have a couple quick questions. So the Planning Commission considered this in 2022, so it's been over a year since they've seen this. And last time, when this first came about, the Planning Commission saw it first to determine if there was community benefits and give feedback, and then it was going to come to us. Ultimately, it didn't. But now it's coming to us before it's gone to Planning Commission. Why didn't this go to Planning Commission first this time around, now that the design has changed?
So this has.
I'm sorry, hold on one second. Julia, there's something going on with Zoom. Oh, it's over here. Okay, thank you. We're
So
frozen.
this is the
I'm
same.
sorry, hold on one second, Katie. Does it matter that we're frozen? Can people still see us?
The screen that you guys see before you on the large TV screen is being broadcasted from a computer that's not actually running the Zoom. My computer is the one running the Zoom, and my computer is functioning. So
We're okay to
I'm
continue.
assuming the feed is going well. I think
That's
that
fine.
computer might just be frozen.
Sorry,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
So this is still part of the original application. So the application that came in 2022, this was their modification to that, and so it's still in the same track. And within the requirements for a conceptual review for a community benefit, it first has to go to Planning Commission, then City Council. There's nothing in there that says if the plans change, it has to go back to Planning Commission. And we felt that we received enough information at Planning Commission about concerns and with no support for the community benefit that it didn't make sense to take it back.
But it ultimately would go to Planning Commission again after tonight. They will see it again.
Not for a conceptual review, but if they come in with a formal application, it will go to Planning Commission for a recommendation to City Council.
Okay, thank you. Yep. And then I have a question about the annexation process that I'm hoping staff can answer. I'm assuming that the lot, the 3720 Capitola Road lot is owned by the applicant. Correct?
That's right.
So if the 1610 Bulb Avenue property becomes annexed, who owns it?
The
Does the city own it, or does the applicant's lot just become bigger and they didn't have to buy it?
the property line would still remain. It's the city boundary that would be amended. So it'd still be two lots in fee.
Oh, so
It'd
they
still
already
be two
own
titles.
1610. They already own that lot.
Their partnership.
I gotcha. Okay.
Partnership.
That's
does,
good to
yes.
know. Okay. That's it. That was my question. Okay, so those are questions of staff. I understand we have questions for the applicant. Yes, okay. Is there someone here that's willing to answer questions? Thank you. And then just questions for now. And then after we're done with questions, we'll go to public comment. And then we'll come back to council for any further discussion. Questions? We'll start down here again.
Hi, thank you for taking this question. It's going to go back to defining the senior living assisted as presented versus, what it's going to be, or you can help me understand.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent question, Yvette. Senior assisted living, it's not technically medical, as Brian had mentioned. This is assisted living for seniors who typically suffer memory care, dementia, or need assistance bathing, needing assistance, walking, going to the cafeteria to eat, taking their medication. And in most cases, families decide to put their parents or grandparents in senior assisted living when it's dangerous for them to live at home. So it's not a nursing home. This is not skilled nursing. It's not a medical center. So it's much more defined as senior assisted living is the definition.
So to follow up to my question, in order for a senior to have access to this, what process do they have to go through their medical insurance to access such assistance?
They can. Typically, people either go through their insurance. There's long-term insurance care that many seniors have that they will receive payment from insurance in order to subsidize their stay at a senior assisted living, or they can do so privately. The application is more if they would like to come and stay. There's, if they are end of life care, there are typically units that are set aside, and there are some in this facility that most all senior assisted living centers have for end of life care. And families can bring their loved ones there for that type of care, which is a little bit more intense. And so the applicant really has the choice of how they pay. Yeah.
So I'm gonna switch gears for a second follow-up question. What was presented to Planning Commission looks different than what's presented today. I've noticed it's larger based off of what was originally submitted. Can you tell me a little bit about why you made those changes to today's?
I'm not sure how much larger the
More rooms. Isn't it more rooms?
Well, the configuration changed from, we originally believed that the community would have appreciated the building being more towards Capitola with the parking coming along the backside of Bulb. However, we listened closely to the comments from the neighbors in the neighborhood, and they felt the opposite, which was pushing the parking entrance and egress on Capitola Road so we pushed the building to the Bulb side, to the neighborhood side, and stepped it down. And it's craftsman style step down, kind of like your Disney's Grand California Hotel, where there's multiple levels. And so that was based upon the public's comment. That's why it got reconfigured.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
I guess I was just curious, like the duration of stay on average.
Yeah, and I do have our architect, Melissa Pence, who has worked with Irwin Partners. I just want to make note that we have a fantastic team. Irwin Partners has worked with over 3,000 senior housing projects throughout the country. So she would probably have a better answer to that question.
Hi, thank you. People tend to stay in memory care and assisted living. It's for several years, some 5, some 10. Memory care maybe a little bit less. It's not like a skilled nursing facility where they're there for 6 weeks or 6 months. In fact, the difference between an assisted living and a skilled nursing facility is that the skilled nursing is regulated by what we used to call OSHPD, now called HCI. And that is a separate set of regulations where we are regulated by the same facilities that regulate childcare and so it's a much lower level. In fact, in the building code, it specifically says that we cannot provide medical care. So there's no medical procedures. All of the care is aids to daily living. So it's in that sense, it helps the seniors stay safer. There's less accidents, there's less falls, there's less ambulance trips because they have the personal care there. And so with that, they tend to stay around 5 years, a little bit less, a little bit more, depending on the age and the condition that they go in.
Thank you.
Alexander, I wanted to make note of your earlier question about the trees. Part of the reconfiguration, Greg Irwin himself and his father actually wrote the code for senior assisted living throughout the country. So he only does one thing, and that's these types of buildings. We reconfigured it to save all of the redwood trees. So yeah, I know they're beautiful. The original plan actually needed them to be, I believe, most of the 3 large redwood trees removed or relocated, but our current design saves them, keeps them in place.
A question going back to the design. Is there any way that you could continue to keep the major portion of the building towards Capitol Road, the parking in the back, and have an entrance on Bulb and an exit on to Capitol Road?
I mean, I think, as Katie mentioned, we're going to be, I mean, we're open to what is the best design and the best plan. But as far as we heard, it was the opposite of what you're mentioning, Joe. That was the original plan. So at conceptual stage, we can reconfigure to make it work as best we can, but you know, to what the community.
Original plan was in and out on Bulb and then in and out on Capitol Road. What I was saying is come in on Bulb and then go out on Capitol Road.
You want to speak to the design?
The property is a little bit narrow for that. We need to provide fire access and just the sizes of the rooms. What's really important about having a courtyard for memory care is there's some of the residents are what are labeled wanderers, where they will leave the facility and get lost. So the memory care is on the ground floor, and it's and the courtyard is in the middle of that, and they can freely walk through the courtyard in and out. There's no gates. They've got independence. And to have that courtyard surrounded by building on all sides, it's got a wider shape that on that property, I don't know that we'll be able to get the road with the parking and to be able to provide the safety of the courtyard for the memory care residents. We can certainly try it. Gut feeling says it's not gonna work, but we can certainly try it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are going, any additional questions from council for the applicant? No? Okay, all right. We're going to take it out to public comment now. If there's any members of the public that would like to comment on this item, you'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name if you would like it right here.
I have copies of the photos. I love it. My name is Shalom Compost. I live at 106 Ray Court. I'm about 1,000 feet from the project. And I just, the trees are beautiful. Great to hear Council Member Peterson acknowledge the trees. It's nice to hear the developer acknowledge the trees. I know there's some discretion with the process in terms of community benefit of whether the council or the city capitol is going to approve this project in the end. And I just would like to have something, I know it's advisory, but just advise the applicant that we really want to see those trees saved. And I guess I'll also say, I invite the 5 of you to drive by Capitol and Bulb. Like coming from 41st Avenue, you can't make a left turn onto Bulb. Bulb is a very narrow street. I don't see much ability to get cars in and out on the Bulb Avenue side. Because if someone's coming out on Bulb, turning towards Capitol Road, they can only turn right. They can't turn left at that intersection. So it's, I don't think you want to use Bulb Avenue for ingress or outgress, but.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Request just a brief pause. We seem to be having an issue with our Zoom, and we'd like to try rebooting the system.
Sure. Okay, we will take 5 minutes. Is that enough? 3 minutes?
Just 3 is all we would.
Okay, we're going to take a 3-minute recess and then we will resume with public comment when we return.
What?
That's funny. That's actually. All this kind of-
Ryan.
Okay. We're still trying. Yeah. Yeah, it kept freezing.
I know, I noticed.
Yeah. You have to remember how much. Computer's so slow today. Like. Bane of my existence, Sam, computers. No. That's it?
You're, no, because you're not connected to the. Great.
Okay. I'm supposed to be on though, aren't I? So I can, yeah, I know.
In that case, then. we could-
Right. It's 250. Council stingy?
Hey, Jamie, should we just get started since it's public comment?
I think we can.
Okay. All right. We're going to bring the meeting back to order. We're going to return to public comment. So this is a time for members of the public to address the council on this item, and you'll have up to 3 minutes to comment.
Before I get started, I just want to say I played soccer on that New Brighton Middle School field, and those gopher holes are for real. So to see that they would put an artificial turf would be amazing for those kids in the community. Okay, so I just wanted to give an opportunity to give a quick update as to why Capitola needs a senior assisted living project. So the property owners, we invested in a robust and detailed analysis report in a 7-mile radius around the subject property. In addition, we referenced and reviewed the City of Capitola's own housing element for the general plan 2023, which was updated November 9th, 2023. And in that, it says, quote, in chapter 2:4, if a city has a substantial elderly population, referring to the City of Capitola, special housing types or services may be needed, such as assisted living facilities, Meals on Wheels, home health care, housing rehabilitation programs. Further, the housing element report states that while most age groups in Capitola declined between 2010 and 2020, Capitola City residents aged 65 to 74 increased by almost 200%. So according also to the Paradigm Study, the City of Capitola is in desperate need of between 169 and 211 assisted living and memory care units, and that was as of 2021. And the deficit is expected to increase to 247 by the year 2026. Again, this is City of Capitola within 7 miles of the subject property. And one final statistic on the age demographics is that seniors age 75 plus who live within 7 miles of the project will increase in population in a rate that is 6 times the rate of the general population. Currently, Capitola has little or no plan to accommodate these seniors who may likely be in need of assisted living or memory care. And Capitola residents would need to relocate their families to surrounding areas such as Aptos, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, and the like. As to the benefit zone, the project lies squarely inside of Capitola's benefit zone, so geographically we are there. Also, we recognize senior care is not explicitly listed as one of the community benefits. However, child care is currently listed as well as other. And in this other, we believe it gives the applicant the ability to propose that caring for the elderly should be considered as important as caring for our youth in child care, as both are in need of full-time care. This project will seek to house, care for, protect patients with Alzheimer's, memory care, dementia, and various other conditions that affect the elderly and make it dangerous for them to remain at home without professional care. I have more, but my 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Hello, welcome. Hi, good evening. My name is Caroline Cuspa. I live in, I think, District 2 on Bulb Avenue. Born and raised Santa Cruz, and I work at Mose Valley. I am concerned about the entire process that I'm seeing. I'm pretty new to this situation, but I recently was fortunate to purchase a home on Bulb Avenue and have like really fallen in love with the street and the neighbors, kids playing basketball on the street, etc. And I'm also one that knows Santa Cruz is going to develop. I've seen it develop over my lifetime, but I'm really concerned about this particular project. I'm also, it's not lost on me that senior care is really important. I don't necessarily agree with the argument that it is likened to childcare and that childcare would not be like a living situation and wouldn't require like it wouldn't be the same to me. Wouldn't require the same kind of like infrastructure. And I guess one of my main concerns is I'm curious where the Board of Supervisors and like our representation is in this process. I'm sad that they're not like at the beginning of this process while we're like just starting to get these plans in place, because I think the further the plans are redrawn, the more committed the applicants come to like having it work in this space. And I think that the people who live on Bulb Avenue have like, it's important that our voices are represented in a formal way too by our elected officials. So yeah, I would like to see that like formally baked into this process, especially when it comes to the annexation. And then, the presenter didn't know how many units were added. And this might be just another development to them, but to us, it's hard to find a home in Santa Cruz. And, our livelihood has been, put into this nest egg, and it's not something that we can just, forget about. Like our lives will change when there's more traffic. Parking is going to get more difficult, and more like street traffic, noise, all of it. It really does affect our daily life. And if there was a community benefit for us, say like taxes toward our schools, it might be easier to overlook that. But with an annexation, we're not going to be seeing any benefit to our community and our schools and our social programs. So I do think that it's really important that our voices are heard in this process. And I'm also curious how many other properties in Capitola were considered. I've seen lots like the one off Portola that looks like it would have enough space. And yeah, the Capitol Mall property, I know it's more complicated than that, but I really do hope they're considering other properties as well for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, welcome.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Alberto Lustre with the Carpenters Local 505. And it's great to see a new development coming into the city. But I want to ask the developer, is this project going to include any labor standards? Healthcare for the workers, apprenticeship for the locals, minorities, women, the homeless, get them to schools, get them a career. And then local hire, just as a whole. Often all the construction workers in the area travel all the way to the area to work, and we bring people out of state to do the work. And a livable wage, making it affordable. When I grew up, and I was growing up, my dad always told me, hey, you gotta be able to build something, you got to buy it. I want, as a developer, how many construction workers, when they retire, can live in those houses? Can they afford it? I don't think so. So I wanna ensure that, we focus on the main things, healthcare. 80% of construction workers depend on healthcare from the public. They're burned to the system. Who's going to pay for that? We do. The citizens pay for it. So I want to ask the developer to make sure increase labor standard language, which include a livable wage, healthcare, apprenticeship, and local hire. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Gallagher. I live at 1505 Bulb Avenue. I was part of the initial group in October 2022 or 2022 was opposing this development on Bulb Avenue and the annexation. And I do want to clarify, as someone who was part of that group, that our request was not to move the parking to the front and not have it on Bulb Avenue. It was to not do this development, including Bulb Avenue, because it is not the highest use of the property and it does not fit with a residential neighborhood. So like an earlier speaker, I do encourage you to drive down Bulb Avenue and see for yourself and imagine your residential street and then a 50-foot, 93-person facility dropped at the front of your residential street, and then have someone tell you that it will not negatively impact you. There is no possible way that's true. It's not lost on me that when we went through this the first time with the Planning Commission, none of them supported this as a community benefit, because it is not a community benefit. Reading your own agenda report, it points out that this project that there are no affordability requirements in this project whatsoever. The applicant reportedly explored the possibility of including affordable units, but it was concluded that privately owned assisted living facilities with affordable units are not compatible for the business model, because this is a business. And as it was pointed out earlier, the only way the only application to get into this facility is to have enough money. So I don't know how we can believe that it's going to benefit our community, because I know that not everyone or anyone in my particular community could afford this facility. So it doesn't, it doesn't make sense to me, and likening it to things like healthcare, I mean, like childcare, as someone who has children in our community, is pretty insulting. I do not think it's a community benefit on any scope. And the fact that they're asking for all these exceptions, including being short on parking, should be enough to take this off the table. Imagine having a 93-person facility with 33 parking spots that don't meet our current code. Where do you think those people are going to park? They're not going to park on Capitol Road. They're going to park on Bulb Avenue. So I encourage you to take the route of the Planning Commission and not support this as a community benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Kim Fry and I live on Bulb at 1530 Bulb. And I want to say I thank you for considering the redwood trees too. And I hope that whatever goes there, they can keep some of those safe. I also am not in favor of this, especially as a community benefit. I had a mom with Alzheimer's and she was in long-term care, but it was nursing home care, because when they do have Alzheimer's, they need nursing home care. I mean, it's medical care. They have such a medical disease, really, that they do need a lot of care. And their quality of life, I think, should include being able to be out in nature like they have at Aegis, or like they have at the Dominican Oaks, where there's a lot of nature around, that they can be in nature during the day and get sunshine every day. I just don't see that this project is going to have a quality of life for those people that are there. I also don't believe that it's a community asset, because once again, like the last person said, who can afford it? I saw somewhere, I think it was out in the lobby, the average income is 89,000 for people who live here. And I would like to know how much they're going to be charging each year for these rooms, how big these rooms are, what are the rooms going to look out to, what kind of sunshine or view will they see? I just don't see how it's going to be a quality of life for the people that are in there. In addition, the cell phone tower is very close, and I have made 4 pages that I put back there for, I guess, for you. I'm sorry if I didn't do that the right way. It's just 4 pages of studies of what cell phone towers do to the human body and the brain when you've got them so close. And these studies are from different countries, from our countries, all over. So it's, I would hope you would look at that, because I don't think that would be healthy as well. And the impacts to our neighborhood, again, even the light and the noise, the light, traffic, I just think that wouldn't be good for our neighborhood as well. So thank you for hearing my comments.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
My name's Mikey Price. Me and my family live around 1479 Bulb. I was also here during 2022 to oppose this project for the Planning Commission. One of the things I appreciate and that I noticed tonight was that the Planning Commission all were opposed as well after hearing our arguments. I think the larger picture here, you'll find is that the residents that will be affected in the community that's going to be affected are the people who live on Bulb Avenue. And like Jen mentioned, imagine having this large facility built at the end of your very narrow residential road. It will impact safety, traffic, amongst other things. I have a 3-year-old daughter. We love going for walks and playing with the other neighborhood kids along Bulb. You're lucky if you get a sidewalk on both sides. Actually, I don't think there is a sidewalk on both sides. You either get a sidewalk on one side or the other. That's how narrow it is. If there's 2 cars passing, 1 car keeps below it. The way that this property would be located with the right turn only onto Capitola means that anybody being in direction to this facility, most of the map directions will recommend going from Palmer down Bulb and then turning right, which if you think about EMS as well as facility deliveries, visitors, it's going to exponentially increase traffic on a very narrow street. Also, with my remaining time, but want to just voice my opposition to the annexation of 1620 Bulb. Currently, Bulb is this portion of Bulb Avenue being under Santa Cruz County. If this additional lot gets annexed to Capitola, it will make our ability to maintain the street more difficult. You know, we've discussed getting applying for speed bumps and things on this road to help mitigate traffic and increase safety. And if this road is not a Santa Cruz County road and it's a multiple city county road, then it would just make that those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, welcome back.
Yeah, hello, my name is James Ewan Whitman. I wasn't going to comment on this, and I wish I was able to take a picture of the location. But I have a friend who had to move out of that area about 6 years ago because of that cell tower. I spent a fair amount of time at the convergence facility, and the energy coming from that cell tower is really quite powerful. So I wouldn't have brought it up, but someone else brought up the cell tower stuff. And, you know, I think our youth's health and the elderly's health and everybody's health is really quite important. And this is an elephant in the room that is rarely talked about. I brought it up on Tuesday at the city council. And it's what brought me into speaking civically more than 4.5 years ago. I mean, it's really crazy. The standards that were set up in 1952, Herman G. Schwarm, you can look it up for yourself. It's set up for thermal effects, and it's set at a rate of 10 million, and that's a distance per centimeter against your body, where bacteria is affected at a reading of 6. It's only off by 1.6 million repeating. So I don't really have any particular thoughts about that location, except I have a friend that had to move away because that cell tower was killing him. And it should be something that's brought up a lot more. Just because there's a federal law by the FCC in 1996, 702, that the only complaint people can make is the way it looks. It's kind of much like why I don't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in here with the corporate pirate flag. There's 5 different legal jurisdictions that I could describe here. Right outside the building is a US flag and a California flag without that gold fringe. So there's a lot of things that I wish more citizens were more active about, because I think that would activate all of you to be more active. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Thanks. Good evening. My name is Vic Clauser, and I've lived on Bulb Avenue since 1985. I bought my house there in 1986. So raised my kids there, watched our street grow. A lot of families move in, and everybody's slowly but surely improving their properties. So I just want to throw my hat in the ring to say I'll be the 3rd or 4th person to invite you to drive up Bulb Avenue from Bromer. And the far closer you get to Capitola Road, the narrower it gets. But I mean, if you look at the striping, the center striping on the road, it's as crooked as a dog's hind leg, because the street just kind of goes all over the place. And it's true, there are no sidewalks, and probably only 1/3, if that, of Bulb Avenue has sidewalks. So I walk my dog, or my neighbors walk their dogs up that street and their kids. And it's already, you know, there's a safety issue there. So can you imagine having ambulances, fire trucks, whatever, come up that street? It is not going to be friendly. I do appreciate the developer, the applicant considering that for us and hearing our voices. But like one of my neighbors earlier, I just think that this is not a good fit for our neighborhood. And I ask you to consider that as you would your own if this was presented to you. Our neighbors, we have block parties. We're all very friendly to each other. I mean, literally, we come from both ends of the street and we come together and we just, we all have kids and it's a nice place, but it will be and would be severely impacted by this. So I don't even know what kind of assurances that we would have that as this goes into the advisory committee and is presented again to the planning commission or whatever, that the change that the applicant made to at least keep the entrance off of Bulb Avenue would be finalized. I would ask the city of Capitola to be a good neighbor to the citizens of Live Oak and not just consider that or whether it's monetary gain. I will say my parents, my dad's 97 and my mom's 96. They lived with me for 2 years. They're still alive. So I just want to note that with healthcare, we had them at Aegis Living for a while, and you will pay between $9,000 and $13,000 a month for a couple. And so my neighbor was right in considering the people who can afford that here are not many. So as far as that being a benefit to the area, I just don't know if it's realistic. So I guess that's all I want to say, and thank you for this time.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
My name's Jason Wagner Marsh and I live on 1366 Bulb Avenue. And my main concern about this project is the traffic and the parking. I have 2 young kids. I have a 2-year-old and 4-year-old. We're constantly walking down the street, riding bikes down the street. There's not a sidewalk that goes down the whole street. So a lot of times you're forced to go on the road, which concerns me about the increased traffic with such a big unit. And another thing too is with the plan, they don't have enough parking for the unit as it is, which means they're gonna have to try to park on Bulb Avenue. And if you go down Bulb Avenue, you can see there's not really much room to park as it is. So I just can't imagine where these people are gonna park. They can't park at the facility and just increase traffic without the safety of like sidewalks, the ambulance, the fire trucks, extra traffic. To me, it's just a big concern. My main concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Again, my name is Melissa Pence. Just wanted to address the sidewalks, the parking, and the traffic on the newly designed property. Just to clarify, people with memory care dementia do not drive. So the parking associated with them is only for staff. Most of the people in assisted living also do not drive. The ratios that we've developed over the last 50 years are 1 parking spot for every 4 beds of memory care. So if there's 24 beds, that makes 6 parking spots. For assisted living, we use 1 to 3. So based on those calculations, we really only need 30 parking spots to meet the need, but we've presented 33. We like to keep the parking lot size small and really what is needed so that we're not creating heat islands and we increase the amount of landscaping. So based on ratios, not of the city that has to do with multifamily, obviously that's like 2 parking spots per unit. This is very different. So we feel like we've provided more parking than is necessary. In terms of traffic, this kind of facility has the least amount of trip counts, which means that it contributes the least amount of traffic to the surrounding streets. Because most of the residents don't drive, and because when staff comes in and out is not at the usual traffic times. So when you look at a traffic study, you'll see that this use does not contribute to traffic. The third item, the sidewalks. We know that parts of the street don't have sidewalks and cars, and it seems to be creeping towards the middle. At least on this property, there would be a proper sidewalk, and so for the length of that, it would be safer. The street would start to feel a little bit wider as it got more defined. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
I live on Bulb, probably 2 doors down from where they want to put that. Today I was in my yard thinking about a 5-story building and how that would look into every window and every yard and block the light and probably cause my redwood tree to have a problem because it's going to be block light. And I thought, how does anybody conceptualize something so big right next to a 1-story house and think that that's okay? So you're asking us to put 100 neighbors and 5 stories next to our 1-story homes. And I'm a senior. I want to stay in my home. There's a lot of us seniors that want to stay in our homes and not have our homes compromised. I mostly want to say, please don't annex. Because if you don't annex, then maybe something reasonable will be built there that can benefit us that are in Santa Cruz, that maybe it's just 2 family homes or something. And then what they put on the corner really matches more the neighborhood. And when you're looking at Capitola Mall being perhaps a 6-story building, and then you're looking at Claire's meeting Capitola right at that corner, and U-turns have to happen in order for it to get to that area as well. I feel like you're just really looking at a lot of potential accidents, particularly for people that are pedestrians, people that are on bikes. It's already dangerous turning onto Bulb Avenue as it is. So please consider us.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Hi, welcome.
Yes, my name is Don Mosgard and I live on Bulb Avenue also. And I didn't make the last meeting, I was out of town, but seems like everything's getting talked about tonight, even though it's a conceptual review discussion. The previous lady talked about parking. I think parking is going to be a disaster. We got 33 parking spots for like 91 to 93 beds, if that's what we refer to them as. And those are just going to be for the employees and the service people. And all the, let's say requiring that nobody owns a car that lives there. I think the size of this project is twice what it should be if we're going that direction. And then there's an issue about visitors. You got a lot of visitors visiting 93 residents or more. And where are they going to park? I've dealt with this personally. We own a rental house outside of Spokane, a residential neighborhood, and the next door neighbors a few years ago had their house turn into something similar to this, where they take care of older people. So since then, there's nowhere to park. We got to drive. When we go up there twice a year, we got to park numerous houses down sometimes just to go there, because you got your service people, your employees, your nurses, visitors are big on the weekends, and they have nowhere to park but on Bulb Avenue. So, and that's already a big issue. So I don't know. I don't look forward to this happening. And then you've heard other people talk about how they like to walk their kids or dogs, etc. So all these are concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. My name's Ron Goad. I live at 1560 Bulb Avenue. It's 2 doors down from this great wall, 50 feet high, looks like. If you look at the perspective of the plan, and it's showing, if you look at the perspective, it's showing down, like from Capitola Road, looking through down Bulb Avenue, you see behind the building green grass and all that. It looks beautiful. But if you were to imagine what homes that we have in a Google setting, like the actual view of that would be, that thing's gonna look all the way to Bromer. It's gonna cover the whole, it's gonna be a monstrosity. It's too big for the neighborhood. And by moving the parking, like one of your council people said today, if by moving the parking, the building back to put the parking in front, it actually pushes it even closer to all the people in the neighborhood. So I don't see even the change of the parking benefiting the neighborhood anyways, because we don't want the parking on Bulb because it's very narrow. If you please, like the people mentioned, drive by, you'll see how narrow it is with cars. You can, the trucks to feed that place, the delivery trucks that place is gonna need, size of it is no less than 10 to 20 a day. There's people there, how many people there? 90 people, staff. So where all this delivery truck traffic? That's not just cars coming down Bulb Avenue, just, it won't be feasible. It'll be dangerous. The size of the structure is definitely, it grew and it looks more blatant. It doesn't look like a pyramid as I would perspect that. I mean, I would like to see the perspective is that the higher it goes, the smaller and further back it gets. I just don't see how you're going to get the parking and then the setback away from the neighborhood with that design. I live, like I said, I live 2 doors down. I don't even know. It's going to be like coming out of looking at Noah's Ark. Like coming out of a cave, it's going to be vertical 50 feet, 100 feet away from me. It's not just my point though, my whole neighborhood is going to see that because the angle at 50 feet, that angle perspective is probably 8 degrees or something for the whole distance of the neighborhood, the whole block, which is maybe 50 homes down on both sides. And please do drive by and come from the Bromer side towards Capitola Road, and you'll get a perspective of how that will be. Truck traffic is going to be enormous now, and they're going to use Bulb. And hard enough now also to pull off onto Capitola Road because of the Pac Bell building sticks so far out. And this thing is just going to encroach it more. And I think one more point is there's more than 3 redwood trees. I believe there's 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, we are going to close the public comment period and bring it back to council for additional questions, comments, deliberation, and a vote. I'll start down on this end. Councilmember Clark?
So we are voting on just annexing, or are we?
So we're giving feedback on the design, the conceptual design, feedback on whether or not we consider there to be community benefit that would allow for the additional FAR and height, and then a discussion about whether or not we would like to consider me as the mayor penning a letter in support of annexation. Oh yeah, there we go. There's the staff recommendation. I think I was pretty close there.
So as far as community benefit goes, I don't think it meets the criteria because it wouldn't be affordable for everyone. Long-term housing, very expensive. And if you don't have insurance for it, I don't think it's affordable for everyone. As far as that goes, I don't think it's a community benefit. I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you. I think it's a beautiful rendering here, but I am going to echo with what a lot of the residents of Bulb have touched upon is the size is a little outstanding and pretty daunting for anybody that would be living near and around it. So, and the affordability is ringing in my head too, especially people in late stages of their life. If they have family support, that's great, but if not, that's not always the case. So I think if this is ever going to happen, there needs to be some serious reconstruction thoughts about how this is going to conceptually look and be of more benefit to the community.
Thank you. Go down on this side. Vice Mayor Brooks?
Sure. You know, I would agree that if this were in fact a senior assisted living center, this would in fact be a community benefit where we would have the opportunity to house our seniors. We could have some control over the cost of living for them, the opportunities available around them and such. But in fact, I think we heard from our speakers today that this is not senior assisted living. This is a memory care facility that sounds more medical than a full-time assisted living, in which I would then agree it would be a community benefit. So in my eyes, I would agree with my fellow colleagues here that this is not a community benefit in that sense. Additionally, I do have input regarding the conceptual design. It is very different from what was rendered in 2022. I don't like the design at all. To put a sea of parking in front of the building has to, it definitely should be able to come forward. The parking should be behind the building. I think it really looks boxy. Breaking up the massing of the building would benefit the project. In regards to the input of the sidewalks, we definitely need to improve the sidewalk situation, making it more pedestrian friendly and soften it through more additional landscaping. We already heard a lot of input about trees, but really, if this is end of life living, right? If this is where people will go to spend the rest of their days, I would encourage you to think about where the residents can access the outdoors, create a more walkable environment. The current design with the wind space in the middle seems really dark. Think about a rooftop deck or something. And I know I just realized what I said after the 8-foot thing looking into into the homes. But my point is, if people are spending the rest of their days here, you don't create a box for them to live in. You create an atmosphere that's more welcoming. For this to truly become a community benefit, I think you should provide some sort of benefit to the Bulb Avenue residents and their sidewalks. You know, you fix it up to just your property there, but this whole block needs support. And if this were a community benefit, that's something you could do. So if this is reconfigured, I know that the old rendering saved the trees. If it is reconfigured, then you should ensure that the trees are still saved. So that's in regards to the conceptual design presented as today. Again, I don't support that as a community benefit as presented as a senior living, assisted living facility. Call it what it is, the memory care facility. In regards to LAFCO, I don't see, I'm not in favor of having the mayor send a letter as of yet. The developer needs to submit their application on their own in 30 days in good faith if there's something going on. And we see you working towards at least some of my suggestions today, then we can see you come back at a later time. Those are my suggestions for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
Okay, thank you. So I do believe that this meets our definition of community benefit as an assisted living for seniors. I do have an issue in trying to perfect every development that happens in Capitola. I think we see that with housing a lot, that it's not perfect in every way, and then we end up with no housing or no assisted living for our seniors with memory care needs. I think the reason that that is so expensive is because there's not enough of it, because there's market pressure. If we restrict additional medical care facilities for these residents, then the price will only go up. So that's why I believe it's a benefit to our community. I also want to mention that this is probably one of the lowest impacts to the community members of Bulb Avenue in terms of traffic and parking, as based on the type of facility that it is. If this was housing or affordable housing or retail, you probably see a lot more traffic. So I think the only thing that's going to be less traffic is if this is developed into single family housing, which I don't think is an appropriate use of this land in Capitola. I think that some of the parking issues could maybe be resolved by utilizing the mall parking lot. I'd like to see the developer talk to the mall parking lot, maybe make assurances that staff and visitors do not use Bulb for the parking, and ensure that there's enough parking on site. Of course, that's hard to assure. I know people have their doubts of their estimates, but there's a ton of parking right across the street that I think could be utilized for this. I also think that if the inlets and outlets are properly designed and exit on Capitol Avenue, the traffic will be mitigated for the residents of Bulb Street. I'd like to see, or I hope the developer would consider maintaining the inlet and outlet on Capitola Avenue, but move the parking to the back, which would also mitigate the visual and shade issues for the residents of Bulb. I think this could be achieved by narrowing the courtyard or by creating more outdoor spaces using fencing or some other means. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to make a couple comments and then we'll wrap up our council deliberation. So I heard a couple questions from during public comment that gave me pause. So comments that were made that have given me additional thoughts. And I think that one of the things that needs to be clarified is the difference between what we consider just generally of benefit to the community and what it means to have community benefit objectively within our planning code, right? So lots of things could be of benefit to the community. And certainly I think a memory care facility is of benefit to the community. Now, a community benefit, memory care is not listed as one of those things. And community benefit designation entitles an applicant to things like increased floor area ratio, increased height, parking exceptions. So I want to really specify that there's a difference between just things that are good to have in our community and actually specifying something as having community benefit, that it changes the way a development is developed. I also want to share that without the determination of community benefit, there is nothing preventing this from being developed. Can you confirm that, staff and city attorney, that this is still allowed to be developed if we do not determine that there is community benefit? It just cannot have the additional floor area ratio, the additional height. They can still build, correct? Okay. I just want to put that in there as well. They would just have to come back with an application that meets our zoning guidelines and it wouldn't have that additional. Okay, good. Thank you. I want to make that very clear. Because I do, also have some concerns here. I think that it's important that we, have the kind of housing that our senior residents can afford and can live in throughout their lives. But I'm thinking more about the senior apartments on Bay Avenue where people can actually live in, have kitchens, et cetera. I know that when this came to our planning commission, they did not view this as having a community benefit as well. So I have some concerns there. Ultimately, when it comes to the annexation, for this project to move forward, because we're just in conceptual space right now, for this project to move forward, we're going to need land surveys, landscape plans, complete elevation, CEQA compliance, stormwater plans, architectural design review, and traffic studies. And that's just based on what's in our packet. And so if any of those things happen and then the results lead to the project not going forward, and yet I've already penned a letter in support of annexation, I've set in motion the annexation for a specific project that's no longer happening. And so in that case, I feel like annexation is premature at this time. The applicant, of course, has the right to request annexation from LAFCO regardless. And then LAFCO will reach out to us, and depending on where they are in the process, if these reports have started, then, there's additional consideration to be had. But right now, I kind of feel like what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is that this development is, this memory care facility can potentially be developed without the additional allowances provided by the community benefit designation, and that the applicant can continue to request annexation without the city council requesting it on their behalf or approving it or endorsing it on their behalf at this time. So for me personally, I don't feel like I have the information that I need to say that I can move forward in suggesting a letter of annexation, or that I can move forward at this time in suggesting that we create a determination of community benefit, regardless of you know, I think I'll leave it at there. I think I'll leave it at that. So procedurally, I understand that this is all feedback at this point, so we don't need a vote. So is that it?
Yes, you can conclude the hearing at this point unless there's a motion.
Do we have general consensus that we've given feedback? Okay. All right. We will conclude the hearing at this time. Thank you. And we will move on to item 9C, Transit Occupancy Tax Audit Update. Receive report and provide direction to staff. We have a staff. Oh, there's Jim. Thank you. Is your mic on?
Nope,
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Thank you.
I could hear myself fine. So this last item before you tonight is an update on the 2023 TOT audit. HDL, our consultant, audited 5 hotels during 2023, completing 4 of those audits. One audit we are still working on just due to some unforeseen circumstances kind of delaying that one. Out of the 4 completed audits, one of the hotels was 100% in compliance with our TOT municipal code. The other 3 hotels had some minor findings. Those findings were untaxed charges, TOT not charged on cleaning fees, cancellation fees, compensated rooms, things of that nature. And then also some unconfirmed exempted rooms. There's certain situations where stay over 30 days it's exempt, or government employees, like with FEMA, when FEMA was here, they were exempt from TOT. Those types of things, we just didn't have the right documentation. Based on the audit findings over a 3-year period, there was about $31,000 of TOT that was not charged to the guests and collected by the hotels. If it had been charged and collected at the time it was due, penalties and interest on that would have taken that number, I think, Thank you. With penalties and interest. Our consultant gave us 3 options for consideration. Next slide, please. The first is to require the hotels to provide all the requested documents, confirm everything, and if they're not, to pay the TOT penalties and interest. Second option would be the same, but not charge penalties and interest. And the third option would be to allow the exemptions, accept TOT as it was submitted, and begin kind of a clean slate going forward. Next slide, please. As far as fiscal impacts, they were kind of on that table a few slides ago. Option 1 would net about $49,000 of one-time money for the back taxes, penalties, and interest, as well as about $10,000 a year of annual ongoing income. Option 2 would be the same thing, but without the penalties and interest, so $31,500 and the same of one-time money and the same $10,000 annual. And then option 3 would not have any one-time money, just the $10,000 of ongoing. Again, HDL was recommending option number 1. However, staff for this particular audit would prefer to use it as an educational tool rather than a punitive tool, and just work with the hotels to actually get them to collect in what the municipal code says. I did take this to the Finance Advisory Committee meeting last Tuesday. Exact same presentation except for this slide, actually. Sorry, Mayor and Vice Mayor. And they concurred with staff's recommendations of option 3. They also said beginning in February of 2024, I've reached out to the 3 hotels, talked to all 3, advised them that this was on the agenda tonight if they cared to speak. And they were all, kind of on board with how we were moving forward. I did get some comments from one of the operators who actually sits on the tourism marketing board that our code charges TOT on more things. So it's something more items than Santa Cruz City or the county. We're gonna look at the code and see if we are aligned with them. See if that's actually the case or not. So as far as recommended action is to authorize staff to waive the amount due based on the audit and to direct us to work with the hotel operators regarding future TOT collections. I will say February might be tight because they're probably already booking. I brought this up at the back. So it might be end of February they start on future reservations. We kind of ease into a full thing. They probably have reservations where they haven't charged it. I'm not sure I need to talk to them on that. And then I think one other comment that I didn't put up on the slide was that by not collecting the TOT, we're foregoing on some of the early childhood youth programming money, as well as some of the money that goes to the local businesses. I think if you look at the audit as kind of a program over multiple years rather than 1 year, results from the first year audit were generating significantly more TOT from that, which is bringing more money into those things. So I think for this particular, given the circumstances, the hotels didn't collect the TOT. It's really owed by the guests. They didn't, not like they collected it and held it. For other findings, they never charged it. So that was kind of the basis for our recommendation.
Thank you. Questions?
What is our TOT tax? We are lower than Santa Cruz, aren't we?
We're at 12%. I believe Santa Cruz is also at 12. I think we're all pretty much at 12 in the county, but we charge it. We don't exclude anything is the point that one of the hotel operators was making, where the city and county, if they go on their website, they have certain things that they don't charge for. And she just asked that we take a look at that going forward. But I believe the rates are all the same. Watsonville might only be 11.
Higher. And the other thing is, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, just, I'm wondering if, I know you're recommending option 3 and I understand why. But I'm just curious, why wouldn't we sort of do like that number 2 option of a blend while we're still required them to bring us those requested documents so we have a little bit of like a reference moving forward? Or is that not really how that works?
Don't know that I'm totally following your question.
Well,
Are you going and collecting the back TOT?
yeah, like to see what it would have been to actually have them physically do what they're supposed to do, so they're
What would
aware.
have been the numbers if you could pull up that
It
table?
would have been number 2, right? Option 2.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just asking, is that totally like a moot point? Like it doesn't matter to you? Like it's not going to make a difference if you saw the required paperwork without giving the penalties?
So
What required paperwork?
So option 1 is to require the hotels to provide all requested documents to confirm, right? And then
Confirm tax that they didn't have.
all this stuff and the requested documents that have exemptions. And that would show what they technically should be charging and what they would owe. And then we would charge them the TOT and the penalties associated with not paying and the interest. Option 2 is to do option 1, but waive the penalties and interest. So they're still having to go through the motions of what we're asking them to do so that we would see what it is. Or maybe I'm just lost on this. I don't know. Would that be totally pointless?
it would be for option 1 and 2, it's the same exercise.
Correct.
It's just what we collect. So if we chose either option and they came back and said, here's all of our documentation, then they would basically owe for the charges that they didn't collect on.
Mm-hmm.
But part of our thought was that they didn't actually collect the revenue. It was technically owed by the guests that were here at the time that they stayed and wasn't
Okay.
charged.
Councilmember, are you concerned that we're not asking them to do the work? Like, do the work. We did the work, Jim. Like, we found out that they weren't submitting that revenue. Have they started that process? Did they start their process, their internal audit immediately? Have they been ensuring, have they been ensuring that, have they themselves been ensuring they've been collecting the TOT?
I just spoke to them last week, so.
So they've been asked to start the process. They're
One of them
not waiting on it.
said they would start collecting immediately, and I told them to just hold off until we get through tonight.
Okay.
To that point, sorry, I'll go back. So I understand that they may have reservations that are already made that they didn't collect on, but they haven't been asked to start collecting that from the moment they were told that they needed to be collecting that?
Yeah.
Okay,
We haven't actually finalized this audit.
yeah. Okay, I have a comment
to-
on that, but I will wait till we get to comments. Questions?
For them, for them to collect, they're gonna have to do some reprogram. It's not like you just flip a switch and start it. They're gonna have to reprogram their.
Can you give me more information on the audit timeline or the process? So we've realized they haven't been paying for X amount of months. They would then start immediately once we tell them to do so. When does that immediately begin?
It would start February 1st.
February 1st. Okay. And none of these options here show any retroactive pay. Like if, we would have to choose option 1 or 2 in order to get any money back, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
We could go back to January 1st, but they haven't collected it for this month either. We just told them about it last week.
Did you contact the hotels that were not part of this audit to make sure that they are also aware of this, that, 3 out of 5 did not know they had to do?
No, they will be probably part of our audit plan for 2024.
Can you contact them before the audit and let them know that they have to do this? Okay.
But I would have to audit them to figure out if they're actually doing it.
I think he's just suggesting a notice. Yeah. Yeah. Just a reminder. Yeah, education. Any additional questions? Okay, we'll bring this out to public comment. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for deliberation. Any comments?
Have a comment. So, it's kind of a comment and a question, but so what precedence is this going to set for all of the hotels and possibly other revenue sources that have penalties involved? Is it that everybody gets a, first mistake, no penalties, no back pay? Or it's going to happen for the hotels? It just seems like it's sending the wrong message to everybody that we do business with. And I would also say, if anything, I would be more interested in not one of the options that was presented, but an option that would forego the TOT, which was not collected, but maintain the penalty. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that was sort of where I was going with my initial question, was that to sort of create, I don't know which would be more, TOT or the penalties or whatever.
TOT is a lot more.
Oh, okay, thank you. So yeah, I would be kind of more interested in like a option 1B or something that sort of ties in something. Maybe I'm having PTSD from some other things that we've dealt with, but I think that addressing the issue a little bit harder to me sounds like we're sticking to our guns a little bit more. Thank you.
My comment would be to use it as an educational piece, and educating everybody and say from the very first on, we will be assessing penalties. And leave it at that. Keep it option 3.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Councilmember Clark that every single hotel, vacation rental, whatever the case may be, that is required to assess TOT fees, get a notice, an educational notice saying, hey, everyone needs to be assessing TOT on all of this, you know, the cleaning fees, the whatever all the fees are. And starting on February 1st, if anyone isn't, you will be assessed penalties and required to do back pay. I feel like this was, it's not like they weren't doing TOT. They were still applying TOT, right? They just weren't applying TOT to some of their additional charges. Correct. So it's not like they were 100% not collecting TOT at all. They just weren't collecting TOT on their cleaning fees or their parking fees or whatever. They were just collecting.
Collecting TOT on 99%.
Exactly. They were just collecting TOT on the room rate. So they didn't think they had to do. So I think if we can use this as an opportunity to send out educational information to say, hey, every single fee you have needs to be included in that TOT charge. And starting on February 1st, if you don't, and we audit you, you owe us money and penalties. I think that's fair. If they just weren't collecting TOT at all, it'd be something else. If they were collecting TOT and keeping it for themselves, it'd be something else. I think the fact that I mean, I can see how that would be easily misunderstood, that it wasn't just the night's room rate. So I'm inclined to go with what Councilmember Clark is suggesting in making this educational, but like with a warning, educational with a warning.
I think one other thing I might add is I can't say with 100% confidence that these folks haven't gotten mixed messages over the years of rotated staff through. So they may have very well asked, do I need to collect on this, and been told no. I don't know that. One of them made that comment. So, and I can't argue that I wasn't standing at the counter. So I don't know if there was clear communication. Now, are they responsible to go read the code?
Right.
Sure. But if they're told by somebody, they don't have to.
I'm in full agreement with Mayor Brown and Councilmember Clark on this one. But I do have some concerns, Jim, about your points regarding there might be things that don't have to be included in the TOT, and just moving forward, we're going to be sending this letter, you know, we could possibly be waiving these fees for them. But moving forward, you said there might be some things that we're going to be comparing the city and the county, the city of Santa Cruz and the county to. So in terms of full transparency and us doing our job and just making sure we're doing things right, are you going to be offering everybody some sort of waiver moving forward? Should we?
That would require an amendment to the ordinance.
To the
It would have to
ordinance.
come back to this body before we change anything on how TOT is charged. I
Okay.
can't tell them.
So it just solidifies more reason for us to waive, for me to be in agreement to waive it, because there could be even more changes coming forward, and it just wouldn't be fair. So unless there's any more. I'm happy to make a recommendation to move forward with option 3 to waive both of the fees there.
I'll second that with sending out the educational piece.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I'll add an aye. Okay, I didn't hear all the ayes. So you say no. Okay, let me start over. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries with 4 ayes and 1 no. And that brings us to item 10, which is adjournment. So we are adjourning to our next regularly scheduled city council meeting on February 8th at 6 p.m. in the